Vince, are you where you want to be? Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go.
Let's start off with this news this afternoon. Notre Dame's reportedly got a transfer portal commitment from Alabama cornerback DeVonta Smith. This kind of popped up out of the blue this afternoon. What did you think?
Well, it's because some national guys just can't help themselves but to, break news and things like that. I mean,
it's what they do, baby. It's what they do, right?
I know. They just couldn't help themselves. And Notre Dame's trying to keep some of their stuff kind of on the down low as they prepare for the playoff and, all these different things. And these, people out there just have to put it out there for everybody to consume. Look, at the end of the day, this is a great pickup for Notre Dame. He's an SEC starter, Sean. They don't get any better than that from what I'm told. And so they had some defections, obviously, in the defensive back room, and bringing in a quality veteran like this, I think it's a good move. Now, I think there's going to be some competition for that spot. I don't think it's going to be, he may be penciled in, but lightly at that nickel position. But look, it's a good move for Notre Dame. They've had a lot of luck in the portal when it comes to the nickel position. And so
just look at Jordan Clark.
I'm here for it. I mean, it's fine. It's great. This is not one I'm upset about. Let's put it that way.
Jordan Clark, Thomas Harper, both have served him very well. And I think this is just a great move, because again, like you've got some young talent coming in the secondary. You've got more numbers coming in the secondary this year than before. But this gives you a guy, like he started 11 games for Alabama, regardless of whatever Alabama is. I mean, he still started 11 games for Alabama, and he's got a lot of experience playing nickel. And, that's an area, like as they look at recruiting, obviously they'd like to, be able to kind of fill that in-house, I think, going forward. But at the same time, if you can find a guy like this, I mean, like what they have done, like they've known what their potential needs are going to be all season, especially since they have been thin in the secondary, so like Chad Bowden and, all those guys, like they've been, Marcus Freeman's talked about this before. Like you don't wait until the portal opens to start evaluating guys. Like you're looking, okay, who are some guys who, like fit the mold, who could be putting their name in the transfer portal when the portal opens. And so they've been looking at guys like this and a lot of other guys for a long time. And it fits an immediate need. And like you said, they've had some success there before. I'm just amazed at the amount of like DeVonta Smith that Alabama apparently has come through.
Seriously.
He spells it exactly the same way as the guy who won the Heisman, who's playing for the Eagles at receiver.
What are the odds,
right now.
Right?
I know.
I mean, what are the odds?
What are the odds?
So I'm trying to see how much eligibility he has left. Do you know the answer to that off the top of your head?
I don't off the top of my head, no.
Okay, let's see here.
This literally came out within about 45 minutes of us getting the show started tonight.
This is very true. 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. Oh, okay. So it looks like he's going to have 1 year of eligibility. I think he there was an injury plagued 23 season. So looks like he's got 1 year.
So he's got another year left.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, like Jordan Clark was only 1 year removed. Like he had some injuries last year at Arizona State that kind of slowed him down. And I think maybe we were kind of wondering, how much is this guy actually going to get? And like, I don't think they could have gotten much more from Jordan Clark. He's been on a defense where there's a lot of fun guys who fly around and, get to the football and, everything else. Like, I think he's been a guy who's really been, fun to watch. And again, like you look at DeVonta Smith, Thomas Harper, before Jordan Clark, I think this is another good one. TD4ND, yes, he is a corner, primarily a nickel.
Yep.
Is his experience. Started 11 games for Alabama this season. 421 snaps this season. His previous high was 30 last year. So he's played a lot this year. Got a lot of experience for the Tide this year.
Yeah, he played in 9 games his freshman year, 11 games his sophomore year, only 4 games in 23, and then 12 this past year. So
right.
He's got that 1 year left.
Fill in the blank. Charles Jagusah practicing with the other Irish offensive lineman today is blank.
A pleasant surprise. And,
yes.
He was, obviously he had the double braces on, but every offensive lineman has the double braces on, but what was his injury was up here, wasn't it?
It was
like
the
a
pec.
It was a pec. But he was the drills that I saw him doing, he was like firing his arms and he was getting hit and I don't know. He looked pretty good to me. So I think he played in the bowl game last year, obviously, and started in that game, looked pretty darn good. I'm not saying that needs to happen this year, but he looked pretty good to me.
Well, no, but you know what? What do we always talk about? Oh, the practice that you get during bowl prep, there
you go.
If Notre Dame wins even one game, that's just that many more reps that Charles Jagusah can get. And he's not getting it out there with the first team, but just the fact that he's able to get some reps this year after being injured all season, after that training camp injury, it's huge. To me, it's huge that he's out there. Just the chance to get in there, practice a little football and, not have to worry about competing for a job and game plans and all that kind of stuff. Second string, third string, scout team, whatever it happens to be. I think it's big for Charles Jagusah just to get out there and get reps again this month. And hopefully, they win a few games and he's getting a heck of a lot more practice,
whether he plays or not is here or there. I mean, could there be a situation where a few weeks from now he's kind of full go and all of a sudden there's an injury or something like that? Could he step in? You know what I mean? That he's practicing and those are reps that he's not going to get again until spring.
Yeah.
So
it was interesting. Mike Denbrock, and the coordinators did their post-practice media today, and he was asked about Jagasaw being out there and how long he's been practicing, and he really didn't want to talk about it. He basically was like, because it was injury related, he's like, that's kind of for somebody else to talk about, not me. But he did, was excited to have him out there and that kind of stuff. But he didn't want to talk about how many, practices before today that he's been out there. So just great to have him back after everything that we thought that he was going to be this year.
Absolutely.
So, GU Knights wants to know, does he play if Knapp gets hurt? I mean,
he's not on the depth chart.
I don't think we saw enough today to make any kind of I would say right now he's probably not there.
Yeah,
right now.
Tosh Baker's listed as the backup at left tackle, and I would assume that would be the case for Friday's game. You're just going to have to kind of wait and see how much stronger and healthier he gets moving forward. Because, when you've got that pec injury, you're not able to really get out there and bench and do a lot of that upper body stuff. And when you're an offensive lineman, you need to have that punch. You need to have that upper body strength. It's going to take a minute to get back to that.
Agree. So Irish wide receiver Beaux Collins has had his ups and downs with, some drops and things like that over really the last, probably the second half of the season now at this point. Marcus Freeman talked about whether these last couple of weeks have allowed Collins to kind of reset, refocus, that kind of thing, getting ready for this Friday's playoff game.
Yeah, Beau's had a wonderful few weeks of practice, confidence, practicing fast, high level, making some big plays in practice, and that's all you can control, right? You learn from the things that are behind you and the mistakes that you've made, but what I've seen in Beaux Collins in these past 2 weeks of practice gives me a lot of confidence in what he can do on game day.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman, Vince, talking about Beaux Collins. He's got a lot of confidence in him. Scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence in Mr. Collins right now?
It's like a 7, I would say. Look, he's a veteran. He's been in big games before. He's produced in big games before. He kind of had the yips, I think, towards the end of the regular season, and I get it. But I'll tell you right now, I think that there's going to be a play that he's going to come up big in this game. I'm not saying he's going to be the number one receiver, but like a key third down, something's going to happen where I think he is going to make a play. And then his confidence is going to start to grow, and Riley Leonard's confidence in him will grow. Like that statement that Marcus Freeman made was as much truth as it was a message to Beaux Collins that they still believe in him.
Yeah, and I mean, you knew that Marcus Freeman was going to come out with an external vote of confidence for him and anyone else. He wasn't going to say anything negative. He wants the vibe to stay good. I think that I would probably be there in that range with you. He has 6 drops this season. According to Pro Football Focus, it feels like slightly more, just because it's felt like, oh man, if he could just hang on. And the most disconcerting thing, I think, is 5 of those 6 drops have been on short balls, where like you just expect it should be automatic, especially for a guy like him, because he is so physically gifted. In the way he started off this season, like he was showing that he could be that go-to guy. And unfortunately, in terms of the wide receiving core right now, it feels like Riley Leonard really needs that go-to guy. Sure. It's kind of turned into Mitchell Evans, maybe a little bit of Eli Raridan, more Mitchell Evans. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think we've all felt like there was more room, especially for a quarterback like Leonard, to use a big target like Mitchell Evans a little bit more. But you'd also like someone like Beaux Collins to be that guy who's got a little bit more breakaway, like who can turn something short into something longer ultimately, just because of, like the speed that a guy like Collins has compared to a bigger tight end and that kind of stuff. So I've got a fair enough amount of confidence in him, but like there's still just a little bit. It's like, give us a little bit more, That's kind of what it feels like right now. I kind of agree with what, and is it Garuk 74? He's in his own head a little bit, fighting the ball. Yeah, like that does feel like it to me. Like there's, and maybe that's what it took, because he was out there talking to the media yesterday as well, talking about he's been out there on the jugs machine and doing some of that kind of stuff for the last couple of weeks. So hopefully that helps him. I mean, I think, they're going to need at least one of those receivers. Somebody's going to have to make a couple plays, because I've talked about explosiveness, and I think that is an area, even though Notre Dame's receivers haven't shown that consistently. Obviously, there's explosiveness, the ability to make explosive plays in the running game, but they're going to I think that it is still, even though we haven't seen it as consistently, there's still a slight edge that I would give Notre Dame in this matchup, and that receiving core's ability to make some explosive plays. But you got to hang on to the ball first. That's just the biggest
100%. 100%. I do take a lot into consideration, playoff experience and postseason experience and things like that. Beaux Collins got that in spades, man. Like, he's been in the postseason. He's been in the college football
and
playoff.
He seems
before.
like off the field when you hear him talk, and you get to talk to him and stuff like that. He seems like he gets everything, and he's obviously played in an elite program at Clemson before coming here. Like, all the intangibles seem to be there.
I agree. And look, you brought Beaux Collins in for these games right here. This is why you brought Beaux Collins in, right? Yes, he was important early on, and him and Riley Leonard had a thing going, and it was great. You brought him in because of the whole package. Yes, he's a great player, but he also has a lot of playoff experience. He has a lot of big game experience from a big-time program in Clemson, right? So this is where he makes his payday, you know what I mean, as far as I'm concerned. And so as long as he shows up over the next 4 games, I'm pretty happy.
Trainer Nick, feel like there's been plenty of big plays, but they all get called back by penalties or dropped. I mean, it does feel like that's obviously happened a few times.
Yeah, that's fair.
This year. I mean, what can you do, right?
No doubt.
All right, so Freeman also talked about whether these last couple of weeks have given Mitch Jeter kind of the chance, to rest up, regroup, refocus, all that kind of stuff. Of course, the transfer kicker from South Carolina hasn't made a field goal since the Florida State game.
Yeah, this is as close as he's been to where he was before he got hurt. He's had a really good 2-3 weeks of practice. Now we had to let him truly recover. He needed it. He needed a chance to recover, and we've probably had more live field goal opportunities and field goal periods in practice. Just for him, but everybody to get their confidence back in our field goal unit, some of the protection things that we have to fix. And so he's had a really good few weeks of practice.
Okay, Vince, this is a topic that unfortunately, we've kind of had to come back to over the last few weeks because it's reared its head out there on the field. We saw the miss on the short field goal against USC. And this morning, they started out, they were doing special teams stuff. And the kickers were out there kicking short field goals, or at least trying to kick short field goals. And we saw Jeter miss a couple of short ones, like in the 30-yard range. So where does this rank in terms of your top concerns going into Friday's game?
It's not a top concern going into Friday's game. It's a top concern going into games beyond Friday. I don't see this IU game being.
So Vince is calling for a blowout on Friday.
I didn't say blowout. I said more than a field goal. I don't see this being a field goal game. Now, I'm very nervous about the whole operation because it's clearly in his head. Because if you watch the PATs, he's money every time. They're right down the middle. They have, that's
the thing. He's 45 out of 45. He's made all 45 of his extra points. So why is moving back a few more yards? Why does that? And watching his body language today, like someone was talking about Beaux Collins being in his own head. He does not look like what we saw this morning was not a confident guy.
Yeah, that's what worries me.
Make or miss. It was just like a lot of fidgety, body language and stuff like that.
That part worries me. One of these games is the field goal unit is going to be an important piece. And like I said, I don't think that's going to be the case on Friday, but if it is, I'm concerned. I'm not going to lie. I am concerned. Somehow they have to get it through his head. Treat it like a PAT, man. Like, don't overthink it. Just swing easy and just do it like you've done it a million times before, but that's easier said than done. This is clearly a between the ears situation. Now, as a kicker, you have to be able to trust your body, and you have to be able to trust your, everything about it, everything about the operation. You have to be able to trust. I don't think he completely trusted his body, the last few games ever since he got hurt. Hopefully that will be different on Friday, but I didn't see him today. What you say worries me a lot. And
that's why I put it up there. Because
what happens.
Like you're saying, you don't think it's going to be a factor, but it is still a playoff game. And weather is going to be a factor. So like fluky things can happen, right? Just ask Indiana when, the snap went over the punter's head and, how things
he just dropped
snowballed, so to speak, after that, to borrow a punt. And I'm just saying, like, things can happen. And, like, based on the score that I have, and I wasn't quite ready to make a full prediction on these games Saturday when we did this show.
Luckily, I haven't done it yet.
Before the games happened. But based on the score that I've got, Notre Dame's going to need a couple of field goals to keep it from being at least, a one-possession game. Full confidence in the defense. I have full confidence in the offense. But sometimes drive stalls. And that, if Marcus Freeman sees the rest of the week, and again, like I expected, nothing else than, for Marcus Freeman to come out publicly and say, try to, get a little confidence in his guys' head. It's not like he's going to come out, well, he's shaky. I'm really worried about this.
Yeah.
It could be I didn't expect him to, because he's never going to throw his guys under the bus, but that it changes strategy.
Sure.
If he sees what we saw today for the rest of this week, it changes your decision-making, obviously on fourth down and how you're approaching third down, as you get it, close to the red zone and those kind of things. Because you expect it to be cold. That means the ball is going to be harder, maybe slicker, so like you don't know what you're going to get there. You expect the wind to swirl a little bit, which you always get at Notre Dame Stadium, it seems like anyway, and that you're going to get at this time of year, so there's just all kinds of things that are going to come into play. So
no doubt.
I rank it pretty high, because again, like I don't think it's necessarily going to be a one possession game, but I also said I've got a couple of field goals factored into Notre Dame's score because Indiana does still have a pretty solid defense.
Sure.
And so if that's the case, depending on what happens, that could make it a one-possession game in the fourth quarter.
Oh, God, I hope not. My heart can't handle a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the weather, how big a letdown is it going to be if there's no snow Friday night?
I want snow real bad. I do. I want snow really, really bad. It'll make for a very interesting tailgate party. But during the game, I want the visual. And the only thing that worries me, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but IU generally wears all white on the road.
Okay.
And if there's too much snow, I feel like that could be an advantage to IU. They kind of blend in with the surroundings.
Hiding in the snow?
Yeah, man. Just saying. I'm just throwing it out there, So I'm going to say I just want it to be cold. Just make it cold, But I do want to see the snow. I think that would be cool. It feels like the percentage of snow keeps kind of going up and up as we get closer
to the
actual day.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that's what everyone's hoping for, honestly.
Yeah.
When like nationally, as soon as Notre Dame was announced as, like a definite hosting a playoff, like everyone, oh, could you imagine if it snows on Friday night in South Bend? And I mean, we were there a couple of years ago for the Boston College game, like that was, it's just always like any of the games when it snows, it's always so picturesque. And honestly, I think that especially depending on the degree of the snow that we get, I think that like I've heard some people say, well, it can benefit receivers because, like the ground gets slick and they know where they're going to cut, in terms of, like the defensive back doesn't know that. And I guess that can be true as well. But I feel like there's a big advantage for a team like Notre Dame, with that running game, because there's a big advantage to Jeremiah Love, as well, knowing where he's going to cut, where he's going to hurdle, and everything else. I think if it's out there, and Riley Leonard for that matter, and Jadarian Price as well. So
I mean, is a 65% or 60% chance of snow during the day, and then a 15% chance of snow at night. So take that for what it's worth. But 22 degrees at night, it's going to be chilly.
Decaf dropping it today. I hadn't even had time to look at this. Notre Dame women back up to number 3 today. 3 with the belong, baby.
It's where they belong.
Right.
The islands were not good to them, but everywhere else has been. So, that's okay.
I think they have made 3 very loud impressions in a 3-week span.
Agreed.
Beating 3 top 5 teams.
Yes, 100%. And it's been fun to watch, man. It's been fun to watch.
UCLA is number 1. They're 10-0. South Carolina is 10-1, and they are number 2. South Carolina's only losses to UCLA, and Notre Dame is number 3, followed by UConn, LSU, Texas, USC. So you've still got 3 wins over 3 top 10 teams right now. Maryland, Duke, Oklahoma, TCU sitting at number 12, one of the 2 teams that beat Notre Dame. You were there Thursday night. What did you think of the Purcell atmosphere for that big win over the Huskies?
That was all. I mean, it was a sellout. I mean, it was an absolute sellout. There was not a seat to be had. I mean, the fans were unbelievable. That was a fun atmosphere to be in. I can tell you that right now. Women's basketball fans at Notre Dame are absolute diehards. They're diehards. You go to a men's game, it's a little different. It's the men's game, right? I mean, not everybody is intimately knowledgeable about all the players. And I'm surrounded by people at these games that know exactly who's on the floor, who's on the bench, what the calls are. They are into these games, man. And it was funny because I went with my father-in-law, and of course the parking was a disaster, obviously, right? And so
how quick did you get out so you could get out of the parking lot at the
end? I stayed and I heard, Niel talk to the fans and stuff afterwards. And then I kind of hightailed it out of there. And I knew the back way to get out of the Joyce Center that a lot of people don't know about. I went out by the swimming pool. But anyway, so I got out of there pretty good. He left with about 2 minutes to go in the game because it was pretty much decided at that point. The looks that he was getting from the people around us about why he was leaving early was not friendly, my friend.
Really?
All right? People were pissed that he was leaving. Of course, he knows they're all season ticket holders, so they all know each
Right.
other. You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, he was getting some looks, man. Like, don't you be leaving
I'm
early,
just going to get
pal.
nachos.
Yeah,
Come
right.
on, give me a break. I'm just going to get nachos.
So yeah, it was a great game, man. And Notre Dame was in control. Like Paige Beckers, they did a great job on her, I thought. And she got some points towards the end, and she ended up getting, I think, 25 or something like that. But man, they did a really good job on her. I mean, Sony she always gets the tough draw and just does a fantastic job.
Yep. It was, they didn't have AZ Fudd, so that is a factor.
Sure.
I watched, like when she was playing, I recorded because we were traveling last Saturday when UConn played Louisville and it was on TV.
Okay.
So I recorded it and I watched some of it last week before Notre Dame's game against UConn. It was also the same night as all the football conference championship games, and I was in a hotel, so there's only so much I could watch. But I just, I was impressed with UConn's size. I think, they did some nice things. Paige Beckers is obviously very good. AZ Fudd is, very good as well. But I just felt like even if AZ Fudd would have been there because of those guards that Notre Dame has, man, they're just a matchup nightmare for any team that they're going to face. That's what it comes down to. They're a matchup nightmare there. Yeah. And what's awesome, they got Liza Carlin back. She's played the last 2 games now. And Maddie Westbeld's return is, not going to be too far away. We still don't have an exact date, but they're going to keep adding players,
Which is scary because they've been working with a 2-man bench.
Yeah. They've beaten 3 top 5 teams and they still don't have their full roster of players available.
Yes. And they're slowly getting them back, and it just makes them that much more dangerous, that much more deep, and they'll be able to rest, some more people to be full steam at the end of the game. And, this team just has a knack to finishing off teams, man. They pull away at the end, and it's just,
that's what happens when you've got, it probably sounds cliche, but when you've got great guard play, you can do that, because they defend you, obviously, and they can score in so many different ways.
Yes.
I mean, they set the program 3-point record again yesterday with 16 3-pointers after Emma Risch came off the bench and hit 7. Indy Sailor, what happened down in the Caymans, decaf, what happened in the islands. The biggest thing, and Neil Ivey kind of talked about it, I've heard some people, bring it down to defensive breakdowns. It was more about the offense. As long as they could keep running, they were fine. But when they were in the half court, the ball just stopped moving too many times. That was the biggest thing to me. And it just, there was just, I think that, and I think I said this right afterwards, that has a chance to be the women's basketball teams, that Cayman Islands trip against TCU and Utah has a chance to be their version of Northern Illinois. It's what you do after it, how you learn from it, and how you use that going forward. And since they've returned, they've beaten 2 top 5 teams.
Yeah, so far so good. And it hasn't been all that competitive, it felt like, either.
Yeah.
Watching those 2 games, to be perfectly honest with you.
They were in control. Even though Texas was even a little bit close. I mean, UConn was, close at.
Yeah, I mean, they got it within 2, and then it was 4 for a while. Then it was 2, but then Notre Dame just took off after that. I mean, it never felt like Notre Dame wasn't in control, though. You know what I mean? They may have missed a shot or 2 and allowed UConn to come back, but it just never felt like they weren't in control.
Yeah. Michael says the TV broadcast made a point to say Fudd didn't play and never mentioned Notre Dame also having injuries. There's a big, I will say this, looking at the game notes, that we get from both teams, UConn spends a lot of time in their game notes talking about injuries they had last season and coming back from injuries this season. You don't see Notre Dame's game notes harping on that nearly as much. Because remember, Notre Dame was impacted by injuries last year, just like UConn was as well. And they've already been impacted this year. So, the fact that they mentioned it on TV, one, don't forget, Rebecca Lobo,
she's a UConn
Hall of Famer, UConn legend, won their first national championship for Gino, 30 some years ago. She was doing the TV, so she's going to give you
Yeah.
I think she does a pretty good job of staying as neutral as she can for
She
being
gives
in that
Notre Dame a lot of
she's
love.
still,
But yeah.
let me put it this way. Like, I don't know, like you probably weren't listening, but when Hannah Hidalgo hit that last three at the end of the third quarter, remember Hannah kind of strolled over by center court right in front of Rebecca Lobo, and my eyes were following her, and Rebecca Lobo was sitting like this.
That's great. That is fantastic.
So
that is great. Because you were sitting right next to the TV broadcast crew.
Yeah.
Like you were right.
And for those listening to the podcast, that was Grumpelstiltskin, arms folded, not a happy look on her face.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah. She does. Indy Sailor says Hannah terrifies other teams, both offense and defense. She does. And
she's
again,
quick.
Like Leah Two King, like UConn found out, right? F around and find out that, those three guards are great. Hidalgo, Miles, and Citron. They devoted a pretty good amount of attention to Citron defensively, but it's not just pick your poison with those three. There are others like Leah Two King, and if you keep leaving her open from 18 feet away, how many short corner shots did she hit? And the shot up there near the top of the key, she's got some range. She hasn't always had the opportunity to show it because she's she's a post player, she's a power forward, but she showed that range. She showed more of that the other day as well. And again, you've got her, and then you're going to add Westbeld. You've got Carlin. You've got Koval. It's like that you can't guard everybody, and that's what's going to make them. The guards are going to fuel it, but there are others who can make them pay as well. Indy Sailor says now Rish as well. The thing that's going to get Rish on the floor more is if she can a little more lateral movement, the defense.
Gotcha.
It's like.
She got a lot of playing time.
As a Notre Dame running back, what do you have to do to get on the field? You got to protect the quarterback, right? You got to pick up the blitz. It's not just running the football. And, so the comparison to that on Niele Ivy's basketball team is anytime we talk about keys, it starts with a defensive key, So that's what it takes to be on the floor more consistently. It's great that she can hit some threes, but you got to be able to play some defense. Well.
She got a good opportunity, obviously, yesterday to run and do some things. And we were listening to the game while we were decorating the outside of the house, Sean Steyer. So you were out there with us, so I appreciate that. But at one point, because you're listening on and off. At one point, you're like, and Notre Dame leads by 50. I was like, holy crap.
Dude, there's only so many ways you can try to keep people engaged.
I know, man. It's like, dang, okay. All right.
50.
Yeah.
50. A 50 burger.
Yes.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that 8 of the top 10 Heisman Trophy vote getters started their careers at either FCS or Group of 5 programs.
I just think it's awesome. First of all, it's awesome because I think it speaks to the talent that is at all levels of college football. And I'm obviously seeing that firsthand as I go on these college visits at D2 schools and 1AA schools and Group of 5 schools. There's really good football that gets played at all these levels, and there's really good talent at all of these levels. And the one positive, Sean Steyers, the one positive of the transfer portal is it does allow some of these guys that may have been missed in the recruiting world to move up once they've established themselves at a lower level.
Right.
And that part is a positive part of the transfer portal, not the money and all the backhanded deals and, all of those things, but the opportunity to see what some of these guys can do where that wasn't always the case. If you signed with a D2, you stayed with a D2, or if you signed with a 1AA, you stayed at the 1AA and you balled out and you did your thing. Now they're having an opportunity to move up and get some recognition. And so I think that part's awesome.
These guys who came out of high school, who took a little bit more time to develop, and because of the portal and because of NIL as well, they're able to cash in with that. I agree. There aren't a whole lot of things that anyone likes about the portal, but this is it, And I don't disagree with what USMA 87 is saying. He's saying Hunter is a huge asterisk because he went to an FCS to be with Coach
Sure,
Prime.
because he was going to go to Florida State.
Yeah. I mean, he was the number one recruit
in
the nation. You're absolutely right. He could have been, but so he wasn't an under-recruited guy who made his way.
But the other seven still, you know what I mean?
State, Central Florida, before Central Florida moved to the Big 12, that's where Dylan Gabriel started. Incarnate Word, Cam Ward. Sacramento State, Cam Scadaboo, USMA 87, your guy Bryson Daly, of course, still at Army, and Shedeur Sanders, obviously, at Jackson State as well, and then Curtis Rourke at Ohio. The only two guys who started at Power 4, Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, and Kyle McCord, who, of course, started at Ohio State and finished 10th, the Syracuse quarterback. I mean, but, even Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, obviously they're at Colorado because of the Deion connection, but even Colorado, like they could have both played, probably gone to, a bigger program than even Colorado. I mean, we know that Travis Hunter could have because Florida State was still better, obviously, a few years ago when he was being recruited. But I mean, I think it's really cool, actually, that guys have been able to, play their way into a better position in their college football careers, put themselves in better positions and get this kind of recognition at the end of the day.
Yep. Completely agree. I think it's awesome, that part.
So Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions, of course, head coach, went with the decision to onside kick when he was down by 10 points with 12 minutes to play in yesterday's loss to the Bills. And it backfired very quickly when the Bills scooped it up and ran it the other direction. Is the bigger flaw Campbell's decision to kick the onside kick, or the fact that with this new kickoff rule the NFL has this year, you have to declare the onside kick and you lose all element of surprise?
I mean, the decision was terrible. Like you had way too much time on the clock to be kicking an onside kick,
especially down 10. Like you've got plenty of time.
And I realized the defense was struggling. Like I get it, but man, you had plenty of time to come back from a 10-point deficit, and they almost did. Even with the pick six, they still scored with like 15 seconds left or whatever it was, and got themselves within 6. So like if they didn't have that pick six situation, they would have been in a much better, position. And so, I mean, even with the element of surprise, right? I think with the element of surprise, maybe you could almost talk away, the decision to do an onside kick there. But when you're having to tell them that that's what's coming,
and that's
why would you even do it?
Yeah.
Come on.
And that's like Tony Romo was saying on the broadcast, and I was amazed because I had, the Sunday ticket, and it's through YouTube. And for some reason, this only happens on certain games, but like the YouTube chat pops up on the side of the screen.
Oh, interesting.
And I can't figure out how to get rid of it. It's like I'm trying to watch a game. I'm not watching IB Nation Sports Talk, and I don't want to see the chat come up on my screen because I'm trying to watch a game. But there were people ripping Tony Romo, of course, and it's like, all right, whatever. Well, Romo in the moment was like, you've got a 7%, like after it's like your chances of recovering this and succeeding 7%. Those were the odds, 7%, because you've got to declare it. And I think this is the biggest, and I said it, when they were switching this format, that's the biggest flaw in this whole system. Because like if Dan Campbell, if it's a regular kickoff rule, and then you kick an onside kick, you don't have to let the world know that you're going to do it. That probably boosts your odds up to at least somewhere around 30%, I would think, of being successful in that situation. But when you've got a 7% chance, obviously Campbell shouldn't have done it. He ate it afterwards, even though he tried to explain it and everything. But that's the biggest flaw with this kickoff rule, is the fact that everyone knows you're going to do it. So it's not really even an onside kick anymore.
Right. I mean, it's just a very, very not great showing there from a coaching staff. Like I get that he's like kind of the all-in guy. He wants to go for it on 4th down and do all of those things. And he never could have predicted that they were going to run back, the onside kick. I get all of that. But man, it felt like a panic move. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like a panic move in the moment.
USMA says I can turn off that chat. Depends on TV and how to accomplish that. That I figured was the case, but I've pushed a lot of buttons, USMA, and I haven't figured out how to accomplish that yet because it's happened multiple games the last few weeks. So if anyone knows how I can turn off that YouTube chat while I'm watching my Sunday ticket games on YouTube, let me know. I would appreciate it. Brando says, win by Dan Campbell, die by Dan
I mean, you're
Campbell.
not wrong.
They're
I
already
get
trailing
that.
anyway, but you know.
I get that. And they've already clinched the
They're not used to trailing that much. Yeah.
You're right. So you coach a little bit differently. And I think he panicked. I'm sorry. I think Dan Campbell panicked in the moment. It just wasn't necessary.
I think so too. I think it was with 12 minutes to go.
Yeah,
you're within 2 scores.
It's almost a full quarter.
Yeah. No, I know he's got the injuries on the defense, and they were having a hard time stopping Josh Allen and all that stuff, but just felt a little too soon.
It just felt rushed. It felt panic mode,
Hit the center button and toggle up. I don't think mine's a Samsung, but I will try that. I know I've got a center button on my remote, like inside the little circle toggle, right, left, up, down.
That was the most grandpa thing I've ever seen you do. You're like, I know I've got a center button on here somewhere.
I got that center button, boys.
That was great.
USMA 87 also says, not sure. I didn't see this earlier. USMA, he says, epitome of a rivalry, Army 11-2 conference champ lose to Navy. Alumni consider it a losing season. I mean, and now you know how Ohio State feels, even though they're in the college football playoff, right?
Right.
A lot of people anyway.
I can tell you right now, I work with a Michigan fan, and I mean they're basically a 500 team, right? But he's all smiles because they beat Ohio State. So, yeah, I get it. It is what it is.
So Corey is saying, pull up the timeline and then go up to highlight your chat option. I'm not sure how you do that on the TV app. Have you ever seen this happen before, by the way, Vince? Where the chat
I've never used
up
YouTube
on your
TV,
screen?
which I will be using for the first time this weekend, though. So I will let you know how it goes.
Did you just get YouTube TV or?
I did not. I will be stealing from someone because Fubo does not have TNT.
For the Saturday games.
Yeah, they don't have TBS, TNT, like that whole group.
All right.
So,
well, I'm gonna have to wait until next Sunday to try this out, guys. So, because there's no other games that I've got on YouTube the rest of the week, but I will try it. So I'll start with the center up button. Center up. All right. I mean, I was pushing the little, like the settings button, like the little thing that looks like a screw or whatever, kind of button, and all these options. It's like I saw nothing.
It's great.
USMA, give me your phone number, last 4 of your social security number, and I can fix it for you. I feel like we're applying for college football playoff credentials.
I know, seriously. Good Lord. I was just waiting for the DNA sample.
TD4ND says we need a whiteboard on this. Maybe Jesse will be able to help me. I'm not sure if he uses the YouTube or not. But Jesse will be in tomorrow, and we will have some whiteboard specifically on Indiana's defense. Brian and Trevor doing a live show at 7 o'clock. They're going to take a look at Indiana. Speaking of which, as we finish up here in the next few minutes here tonight, Stephen B says, look, Indiana is a very good team. ? Why is everyone hold it? Let me read that again. Look, Indiana is a very good team. Why is everyone suggesting that if we don't hammer them, we suck? I don't think that's what we're suggesting, are we?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all.
I know you think that Notre Dame's going to handle them fairly well, but I'm not saying. Neither one.
I said I want to be on record. I said it's not going to be a field goal game. That's what I said. And since I haven't had a chance to put my thoughts together on what my prediction is, I just don't think it's going to be a field goal game. That's what I'm saying. And could I see it getting out of control potentially? Yes, but I'm not predicting that will happen. I do not see it getting out of control in the other direction. So If Notre Dame loses, it's going to be a close loss. If they win, it could be a close win, or it could be a blowout. That's where I'm at.
So the only scenario you don't see is blowout in Indiana's favor,
right.
is what you're saying.
Correct.
Any of the other three up for grabs as
correct
right now.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and that's why I think the field goal thing is a big deal, because
could be.
You don't know.
It could be.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be tough for kicking for anybody in
at least on paper, they're two evenly matched teams.
Sure.
I still think Notre Dame has the better defense. I think they have an elite defense. Again, numbers wise, Indiana's defense is very good as well, but I don't think that they're as good or as athletic and able to cover space, especially vertically, as Notre Dame.
Yep. That I agree with.
So Vince, again, Jesse is going to bring the whiteboard in. We'll take a look at some of the things that Marcus Freeman had to say about IU's defense at his press conference, specifically about their run defense and how they can kind of make things hectic for the run game, since obviously Notre Dame wants to rely on that quite a bit. So we'll take a look at that on tomorrow's show.
Nice.
As we get one day closer to Friday night.
Can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Public service announcement, everybody. Be nice to the dean.
There you go. Nice sweater, by the way. I like it.
Be nice to the dean. Santa is watching.
It would only be better if your name was Dean. So
I know. But it's the job title, so I'll take it. So everybody just be nice to the dean. It's going to be a long week.
Again, Brian and Trevor have a live show coming up, 7 o'clock Eastern time. That's just 12 minutes from right now. So stay tuned. It's coming up. Vince, fun as always. I will talk to you later in the week.
Wednesday. I'll be
here.
Hit
the like button before you leave. Subscribe, rate, and review, and all that fun stuff. And we will talk to you tomorrow. Jack got one in. We don't have a time. Do we have a time and location for the IB tailgate?
Nope, but guess who probably knows more about that than we do? The next show at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. I know
Throw it in there, man.
I know he has said it'll start sometime in the afternoon. I think like the location just all depends on
where you get a parking
passes you can get and where you can get set up. So they'll send some stuff out after they get that.
Correct.
Figured out.
I just don't know what time it starts. So that's going to be the biggest thing.
Right. Probably around 7 o'clock. I'm kidding.
Sunrise or sunset.
That's right.
It'll start at sunset, about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's 4 o'clock then, but practically around here, seems like. All right, that's it. Hit the like button. We'll talk to you later. IB Nation Sports Talk.